Good morning, students. Today we are going to discuss on derivations and parse tree. So, in Unit 2, this is going to be one of the important topic. So, you people must know what is meant by derivations and what is meant by parse tree. So, the parse tree, which is a tree, which is a syntactic tree, and which is going to be one of the important phases in structure of compiler. So, this particular parse tree is constructed in one of the steps of parsing process. So while constructing this parse tree, we used to follow this particular technique named as derivations, and using this particular techniques we used to construct the parse tree, or else simply we used to call it as a syntactic tree or syntactic structure of a particular expression. So here in constructing this parse tree, we are going to use one of the important technique named as derivations. In this derivation technique, we used to use an grammar named as context free grammar. So the context free grammar, which consists of few symbols like start symbols and then non-terminals and then terminals and then productions. So these are the four important items in context free grammars. So during derivations we used to use these four symbols, and using these four symbols we used to construct the parse tree. Simply we used to call these derivational rules as rewriting rules, where we used to have some replacement of each and every non-terminal to either a non-terminal or non-terminal to either a terminal. So we used to have some sequence of replacements, and finally we used to achieve the target whatever that we need in that particular parse tree construction. So basically you have some two types of parsing here, as top down parsing and bottom up parsing. So top down parsing, in the sense we used to start from the top of the tree and then we move towards the terminals that we have in the parse tree. So we used to call it as an top down parsing. We used to start from the start symbol and we move towards the terminals. And the next one, which is about bottom up parsing, we used to start from the terminals and then we move towards the start symbol. So here we used to have the replacements like terminals to non-terminals, non-terminals finally to a start symbol. So these are the various replacements that we have in derivations. And then in this example, we have two examples. The first one, the E derives minus E. So in this first example, we could convert the capital E to minus E. So we used to call it as the replacement of single capital E by minus E. Then second example, which is going to be about E gives E with nested parenthesis. So which means from E we are going to derive the E with nested parenthesis. So during the replacement process, we have two options here. Either we could replace E with minus E, or else we could replace E with nested parenthesis, and then keep on replacing these things. Finally we used to derive the string, whatever the input string that we have to derive. One more examples. This is not an example, but this is an concept that we have to understand. So here I am using two things as S asterisk A. In this we have two symbols as S and A. S which is going to be start symbol and A which is going to be one of the input string. are the input string whatever that we have to derive. So between this stat symbol and the input string, we used to have a number of replacements, and we used to have a number of non-terminals. So these non-terminal replacements, of a collection of these non-terminal replacements, we used to call it as an sentential forms. And then each and every replacement from non-terminal to non-terminal or non-terminal to terminal, we used to call it as a sentence. So you must know the difference between sentential forms and sentence. So this is going to be the objective of this particular example. And then a language that can be generated by a grammar is said to be a context-free language if two grammars generate the same language. So this is going to be one of the important point that we have to keep in mind with this particular example. So the input string, which is going to be minus opening parenthesis id plus id closing parenthesis, and then using some set of protections, we are going to derive this input strings. So here we used to have some various replacements starting from e and towards minus id plus id, and all those replacements that we have between the start symbol and the input strings, all those things we used to call it as an sentential forms of this grammar. And the next one, which is about rightmost and leftmost derivations. In short, I have given some two examples. In the first example, which is about rightmost derivations, so you have start symbol and then you have the final input string. So in these replacements, we used to take the rightmost non-terminal, and then we used to convert the non-terminal into that particular as input string or another non-terminal. So we are going to take the rightmost non-terminal present in an production, and then we used to replace it. We used to call it as an rightmost derivations. In the second example, we have used the leftmost derivation concepts. So in the derivations, we used to take the leftmost non-terminal, and then we used to replace it with some input strings or replace it with some terminals. So here we used to call it as in leftmost derivations. So we have some two types of derivations. So for the same input string minus id plus id, we are using some two different types of derivations. So in the first type, we are starting from the input string and then we are moving towards the start symbol. The second example, for the leftmost derivations, we are starting from the start symbol and then we are moving towards the input string. So this is going to be the differences that we have between the rightmost derivations and leftmost derivations. The next one, which is about parse tree. So this is going to be a simple definition that you people have to be keep it in your mind. A parse tree is a graphical representation of a derivation that filters of the order in which productions are applied to replace non-terminals. So basically we are going to construct a graphical tree, and then you have an order that to be followed while using those non-terminals conversions. And then you will have some various interior node of the parse tree. That particular interior node which is going to be acts like a representation for application of the productions, and then keep on converting and converting those non-terminals to further non-terminal and non-terminals to some other non-terminal, and finally we move towards the terminal, which is going to be the input string whatever that we have to derive. So these are the things about parse tree. The other name for parse tree is we used to call it as an syntax tree. So the parse tree, so this is going to be the example for parse tree, and you have an input string minus opening parenthesis id plus id and closing parenthesis. So the start symbol here, which is going to be the capital E, and then further using production E gives minus E, we are going to convert capital E to minus capital E, and then using one more productions E gives E with nested parenthesis. I'm going to take the rightmost E and then I'm going to convert it into E with nested parenthesis. And then next thing, using in another production E gives E plus E, I'm going to convert the E into E plus E. And then further I'm going to take E, capital E, and then I'm going to convert it into ID. And first I'm going to take the left and then I'm going to convert, and then I'm going to take the rightmost E and then I'm going to convert. Finally, I'm going to concentrate on the leaf nodes alone, where you will have the input strings minus opening parenthesis id and then plus id and then closing parenthesis. So this is how we used to apply the concepts of context-free grammars, productions, derivations. In derivations, either which is going to be in leftmost or rightmost. In parsing, either which is going to be top down parsing and bottom up parsing. But the objective for us, which is going to be about construction of parse tree using context free grammars. So these concepts and various things whatever that we have discussed, either which is going to be an sentential forms or sentence or rightmost derivations or leftmost derivations. So all these things which are going to be an important keywords for this particular question. So students concentrate on this particular questions and gain some in-depth knowledge on these things. So thank you for listening. Thank you students. Thank you.